The moment you raise your standards, watch how many people suddenly call you difficult. Not because you changed into someone unreasonable, but because access is no longer cheap. That is one of the darkest truths in dating. A lot of people do not get upset when you become mean. They get upset when you become less convenient. When you were softer, more patient, more willing to explain, more willing to wait, more willing to give chance after chance, they were comfortable. They liked the version of you that kept the door cracked open. The version that responded even after confusion. The version that translated mixed signals into stress, inconsistency into trauma, distance into fear, and disrespect into, maybe they're just overwhelmed. That version of you was useful. The moment that version disappears, people feel it immediately. Now your replies are slower. Your tolerance is lower. Your standards are clearer. You no longer romanticize almost. You no longer clap for crumbs. You no longer let apologies replace change. You no longer offer emotional access to people who have not earned emotional safety with you. And suddenly, they think you are cold. But look closer. You were not cold when they were inconsistent. You were not too much when they were benefiting from your patience. You were not difficult when you were absorbing their instability and still making the relationship easier for them. It only became a problem when your standards interrupted their comfort. That is why boundaries offend certain people. Boundaries expose where they were getting over. The wrong people do not hate your boundaries because the boundaries are unfair. They hate them because the boundaries remove advantages they had gotten used to. The ability to text you whenever they wanted. The ability to disappear and still come back. The ability to give vague effort and still receive real attention. The ability to stay half-committed while enjoying full emotional access. The ability to keep you confused while still keeping you close. When you had looser standards, that whole system worked in their favor. When you tighten them, the system breaks. And once it breaks, people start reaching for labels. Now you are guarded, different, hard to talk to, too serious, doing too much, all of a sudden acting brand new. No, you are just no longer participating in a dynamic designed to keep you emotionally available at a discount. That is the part so many people miss. A lot of dating advice tells people to set boundaries like it is some simple, clean process. Just communicate your needs. Just say no. Just know your worth. But what they do not tell you is that boundaries reveal character. Fast. Because healthy people may not always love your boundary, but they respect it. Emotionally entitled people react to boundaries like theft. They act like you removed something that belonged to them. Your time, your softness, your attention, your forgiveness, your emotional labor, your understanding. And if somebody gets angry the moment you start protecting your peace, ask yourself a very honest question. What were they getting from me when I was easier to access? Because that is usually where the truth lives. Maybe they were getting reassurance. Maybe they were getting ego strokes. Maybe they were getting emotional comfort without commitment. Maybe they were getting the luxury of being half present while still receiving full understanding. Maybe they were getting the freedom to stay unclear because you kept doing the work of clarity for both of you. That is why your standards feel so disruptive. They force other people to either rise or lose access. And not everybody can rise. Some people only looked compatible with you when your expectations were low enough to protect them from accountability. Some people only felt safe around you when they could stay inconsistent without consequence. Some people only called you easy to talk to because you were easy to delay, easy to revisit, easy to emotionally manage. That is the uncomfortable truth. A lot of people do not miss your kindness. They miss how much your kindness let them get away with. And if you have recently changed, started saying less, started walking away sooner, started expecting more, started listening to patterns instead of promises, you have probably already seen this reaction. People who once felt perfectly comfortable keeping you in gray areas now feel pressured by directness. People who once benefited from your openness now call you closed off. People who once thrived on your patience now say you are impatient. People who once loved how understanding you were now say you are harsh. But standards always feel harsh to people who preferred your confusion. Because confusion gave them room. Standards remove room. Confusion gave them time. Standards create decisions. Confusion let them stay blurry. Standards require definition. That is why the shift feels so dramatic. Not because you became someone impossible to love, but because you stopped making yourself easy to mishandle. And here is where a lot of people betray themselves. They start second-guessing the new version of themselves just because others are uncomfortable. They think, maybe I am being too rigid. Maybe I am too defensive. Maybe I should soften again. Maybe I should give them more grace. Maybe this boundary is too much. But listen carefully. If your boundary only feels too much to people who are benefiting from your lack of one, that is not a sign to lower it. That is confirmation you needed it. Not everybody deserves the same level of access to you. Not everybody deserves repeated chances. Not everybody deserves emotional explanations for why the same old behavior no longer works. Sometimes a closed door is the explanation. And that does not make you bitter. It makes you wiser. There is a difference between being loving and being available to dysfunction. There is a difference between being compassionate and being easy to exploit. There is a difference between being open-hearted and being underprotected. The strongest shift you can make in dating is realizing that protecting your peace will always offend people who built comfort inside your lack of boundaries. That does not mean you are wrong. It means the system changed. The old version of you was easier to use. The new version requires accountability. The old version hoped people would eventually do better. The new version watches what they do without needing to be convinced. The old version stayed open through confusion. The new version understands that confusion is already information. And that is why some people fall away the moment you level up. Not because your standards are unrealistic, but because your standards finally reveal who was only around while you were easy. So let them say you changed. You were supposed to. Let them call you difficult. You were never meant to stay digestible to people who thrive on emotional shortcuts. Let them feel the difference between your old softness and your new discernment. Because the right people will not resent the version of you that protects herself. They will respect her. They will meet her there. They will not need access to your confusion in order to feel close to you. And once you understand that, you stop fearing being called cold by people who only liked you warm when it was easy for them. Your standards are not the problem. They are the spotlight. And the people angry at the light are usually the ones who were surviving in the dark.